Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel. When it comes to investing, in particular in the world of crypto, there are a lot of threats. Not just from navigating your everyday scams or becoming accustomed to the landscape of crypto, but what about the threat that bank failures pose? Unless you've been living under under a rock, I think you know at this point that the hot topic today, and it affects certainly legacy finance as well, investing in equity, so on and so forth. It's the bank runs, the banks collapsing, gigantic threat. And I want to share with you some perspective on this, in particular from an analyst who's become very well known in the world of crypto, who runs their own investment firm. And I got some charts to share because sometimes just seeing a visualization of what's going on in terms of flows of money can have a deeper impact than just hearing the numbers. And it's incredible what's happening here. But I'll even tell you here at the outset of the video, the Fed, they've gone from quantitative tightening to effectively quantitative easing. That's not a word. Quantitative easing, which has the opposite effect of what was intended up to this point in terms of tamping down inflation. They've gone inside of a week dramatically in the other direction. I've got a chart I want to share with you specifically on that, and then their stance on frankly just making sure that deposits are backed. It's just incredible the degree to which they're against that. And then also I want to expand upon something that I highlighted in a video yesterday. I'm sure some of you caught it. I was talking about Flare. Now, that's something that, up until this point, up until recently anyway, that might have only been interesting to those XRP holders who had exposure to XRP during the December 2020 airdrop. Or snapshot, which led to the airdrop earlier this year. And that's no longer the case. I think that most people don't realize that the decentralized Flare ecosystem, the participants voted to change the distribution method. And it's no longer just for people who had XRP on the snapshot date. It's now literally for anyone. And the reason I wanted to highlight that, in addition to that fact, because I think not enough people know that, is I've been looking at some of the numbers here. And it doesn't take much of an investment into Flare to get to a point where you're getting, a monthly increase in your Flare holdings if you delegate to the point where it's equivalent to a car payment or even a mortgage payment. And I kid you not, it is not too much to say that that is real life. And that's because this thing just launched. There's not much money in the Flare ecosystem. It's uncertain. And there is, I think all crypto is risky, just to be honest with you, including XRP. That doesn't mean I have high confidence, but let's not pretend that this stuff isn't risky, especially with a cryptocurrency like Flare that's only been around for 2 months. But I think the opportunity is there as well. And so that's why in this video I wanted to highlight, yes, there's all sorts of threats coming at us from all sorts of angles, but you can still find the opportunity. And that's why, and so again, I talked about this idea of Flare yesterday, but I want to expand upon it with additional points and share with you a real world example, because there's an XRP community member who shared what she ended up receiving from the first Flare drop, which is different. So the airdrop happened in January, and then there are Flare drops that are going on for 36 in total. We just had the first one the other day, and it's just the dollar equivalent to what was received by putting up, investing a minimal amount, relatively speaking. It's astonishing. I mean, in this case, it is basically a mortgage. And just not enough people know that. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. So I record this, XRP's up to 38 cents. Bitcoin's at 27,472 bucks. And by the way, within the last 24 hours, it did hit a high of $27,739. So, although it is true that, the markets were a bit skittish in many of recent days anyway, although we've been trending up for most of the last week, basically, it certainly is the case that after the bank collapses occurred and all that scary news a week ago, Bitcoin and crypto in general responded favorably to the Fed stepping in and saying, we're going to make sure that depositors are protected. Once that happened, Bitcoin moved to the upside. So it had a response to the government there. And there are a couple instances like that. So it's still, even though it's in response to the fact, it's moving to the upside. It's incredible to see this. So I'll say what I said again yesterday here. It's worth repeating. My stance still is that the bottom of the bear market we saw in November, unless we see a black swan event that leads to terrible economic devastation. That would be my one caveat there. You got the market cap for the asset class almost at 1.2 trillion. Hasn't been that high in a long time. Bitcoin dominance has climbed to 44.87%. And look at the crypto fear and greed index. My friends, think about that. We're in greed right now at 64 out of 100, while the world is on fire in many aspects. But see, look, there's always opportunity, though, and I think people in crypto, well, they certainly feel that way. At a minimum, they definitely feel that way. But think about what's happening with the bank runs and banks collapsing. Completely reckless monetary policy, certainly in the United States, but many other governments the world over. And despite all of that, crypto markets are in greed today at 64 out of 100 on the crypto fear and greed index. Truly astonishing stuff. Now, take a look at here's a tweet from John Deaton. He shared some stuff from Lynn Alden. And so she runs she's the founder of Lynn Alden Investment Strategy. 596,000 followers on Twitter, very well known. So if you're on social media, a pretty decent chance if you're in crypto that you have heard of her before, and she's rather insightful and shared some very interesting stuff that I want to share with you. So attorney John Deaton tweeted out, the two tweets below by Lynn regarding Caitlin Long of Custodia Bank perfectly sums up the absolute insanity of how our government has been seized by bureaucrats who do nothing but protect the incumbent broken banking system. And what did Lynn Alden write here? Well, take a look at this here. She had this thread, which starts out as follows. And by the way, Caitlin Long, she is the founder of Custodia Bank, which is it's a crypto bank. They'll custody crypto. And I don't know a ton about it, but I know that is indeed the case. And so would cater heavily, presumably, to institutions, so on and so forth. And she's been highly critical of the government because she actually approached the Fed and said, hey, we just want to be a bank where we have not just 100% of customer funds, in the vault, effectively, like actually backed 100% by us. We want to have 108% backed, actually. And why 108%? Well, the reason she was pushing for 108% is because currently, if you look at what small banks hold, that's typically what they have on reserve. So that way, even if 100% of customers pulled their funds out of Custodia Bank, not only would they be covered, then the bank would still have 8% of total deposits, which is what the typical small bank has. And the federal government said no. I kid you not. They see it as a threat. And so Lynn Alden tweeted out the following. So Caitlin Long of Custodia Bank warned regulators about the risk of specific bank runs months ago. Meanwhile, her bank applied for Fed access and wanted to have 108% of customer deposits in reserve, able to withstand a full bank run, and the Fed wouldn't give them access. A world of social media, wire transfers, and software APIs requires higher bank liquidity than a world of paper checks and banknotes, but neither banks nor regulators have kept up. And so I'll just pause and note what she's talking about right there. Is we do live in a world, especially where, FedNow, and she mentioned in her very next tweet, FedNow is going to be launching later this year, which offers not just a real-time payment system, but real-time settlement system. And so the velocity of money will be increasing. It certainly used to be the case that news traveled slow, so even if there were a disaster, not everybody would hear about the disaster at the same time. There wouldn't be as many people necessarily trying to pull money out of a bank, if there were some sort of economic disaster. So there's that, but then there's on the tech side here, if you once you have the bad news, you can do it instantly on your phone or your computer. You can move funds around instantly. And with FedNow, you're talking about instant settlement. So the money, not just the payment moving and then batching things through once every 24 hours. You're talking about that money actually flowing out like snap of a finger instantly, right? That's what you're talking about. So if everybody finds out at the same time and they can withdraw instantly, it's a major problem if banks don't have more liquidity on hand than they historically would otherwise. That's a major problem. Caitlin Long has pointed this out, and she's noted that the Fed hasn't figured this out yet, presumably. And yeah, I understand that they can jump in relatively quickly, should such a scenario occur, and they can say, we're going to make sure that depositors are made whole. And they'd have to, frankly, because without this, the whole economic system collapses. Without trust, there is no economic system. So they'd have no choice but to do that, which is what we just saw with the recent bank collapses. They had no choice. Once it got to that point anyway. They had a choice not to have stupid-ass policies that led to that, but once they made the stupid-ass policies, now you're back into a corner. So they either don't get it or they just think they can swoop in last minute and say depositors are safe. How long did it take them, though, after Silicon Valley Bank collapse, though? I mean, it happened, towards the, going into the weekend. So maybe in theory they could have moved faster and they didn't go as fast because they knew they had the weekend figured out. And then by the time Sunday evening rolled around, they announced, okay, depositors, we're going to make sure that you're protected. Maybe, but can they really swoop in that quick? I mean, if everybody like snap of a finger has that news and then they all start freaking out, are they going to be able to jump in quick enough? Will the bank run out of money? And then to what degree would that have this cascading effect throughout the entire banking system throughout the United States? It makes you want, and then what would that do on a global scale once that news breaks? Because the United States, if you have an economic meltdown and the United States is the one that prints, it's the country that prints the United States dollar, that would have global ramifications, obviously. Scary stuff. And then Lynn Alden says, banks used to have as low as 3% of deposits available in cash. Even today at 8%, is that sufficient? The world changes, and FedNow will further accelerate the ability to move deposits in July. Meanwhile, the Fed has been draining cash reserves from the banking system. And then she shared these two charts in this one graphic here. So the top chart shows small banks and the percent of bank cash as a percent of total deposits. And then the bottom one is the same chart, but for large banks. So you can see what's been happening certainly recently. The amount that's on hand backing deposits, very, very low. 8% for small banks. And then for larger banks, you're looking at, I don't know, maybe call ballpark it close to 13%. Still nowhere near enough. That's the world that we're living in right now. That's insane. And then to take a look at this. So Peter McCormick wrote to Lynn Alden in response to this and said, I would pay a fee to have 100% of my company bank deposits held in reserve. I don't need risk with operational cash. I need instant access and zero risk. And Lynn Alden responded. And she said, the funny thing is, with current rates, you wouldn't have to pay a fee at narrow banks. Fed pays banks 4.65% on bank reserves. A bank could say, we'll give you access to that, 100% backed, plus various payment services with a 2% overhead, so you get 2.65% deposit rate. What's stopping that is the Fed. Now, that's pretty astonishing. How many of you knew that? The Fed pays 4.65%. So if you're a bank, it's not that you would even necessarily have to charge some outrageous fee so that, it's eating into reserves for your customers. They're getting 4.65%. So you could say, okay, well, they're operational expenses. So 2% of that 4.65% is going to go to us in the form of a fee. And then you get a 2.65% deposit rate. That's just an example of how it could go down. But they're not doing that. And why? Well, there are a lot of reasons, which I've talked about in recent videos, including the fact that this is how the system in place by effectively taking deposits from customers and then loaning them out to other humans. That's the creation of new money. That's the way the system works. So there are a lot of reasons that they could feel threatened. One of them is that, like, that's the way that new money's created. And you're talking about what? Just not having that new money being created. Well, in times of, quantitative tightening, I guess they'd care a little bit less in theory, but still, they're not allowed. This is the Fed not allowing this. We are all forced into the fractional reserve banking system. Pretty astonishing stuff here. And then you have this chart. This one was shared by a ton of people, but I pulled up one from Michael Arrington, who's the founder of TechCrunch and also Arrington XRP Capital. And here it is. The Fed balance sheet rises by nearly $300 billion in a week. So you can see as you lead into early 2022, the balance sheet pretty well peaked off, and then we engaged in quantitative tightening to tamp down inflation. You can see visually with your own eyeballs, went down, 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 and then spiked back up. And the federal government had no choice. They really had no choice because, again, had they not bailed out depositors, well, that's the end of trust in the economic, in the banking system. Economically, you can imagine the fallout from that. But that's the reverse of what they've been doing. They've been trying to fight inflation by increasing interest rates, but then they just expanded the balance sheet, which has the opposite effect. It's on your screen right there. And so to see it with your own eyes is just, it has a different impact than just saying the numbers, right? It just, all that work for a year and just like in a week, Like about half of it's gone. About half of that effort is gone in a week after working on going in that direction for a year. Good job, government. I just honestly, I don't know how they get their own shirts on in the morning. I seriously don't. Do they walk around with helmets? Because they should if they're not. And if they do put their own shirts on in the morning, I'm convinced that they're inside out and backwards because these people are idiots. But there's still opportunity. Let's talk about the good side. So again, I was talking about this topic in a video literally yesterday, and I want to expand upon it and share with you a real world example because I happened to mention yesterday that I purchased Flare for the first time ever, and it's the first time I had purchased crypto, if memory serves, since November after the FTX collapse. I don't think I purchased anything since then, but after that capitulation event, I was like, oh, I'm taking advantage of this. I don't know where the bottom is, but I said it publicly at the time. I don't know where the bottom is, but when there's a capitulation of it, stuff goes on sale, I'm there for it. And now, even though Flare had recently come up a bit, it was at an all-time low literally just a few days ago, as low as 2.4 cents. But it's only been in existence for a little over 2 months, so, all-time low. Who knows how low it goes? What if it does go down to a penny or half a penny? Well, okay, well then in the short term, people are going to be feeling some pain, and maybe that happens. But if that happens, I'll just buy even more, frankly, unless there's a reason that there's some sort of fundamental flaw that's discovered because it's new tech. So I do want to be clear here. This is not me telling you to do anything or not do anything. I'm not telling you to go out and buy Flare or not buy Flare. I'm just going to share with you what I'm doing, and I think it's a very interesting topic for conversation, but it's definitely not financial advice, period. Full stop right there. There is nothing special about me. I don't have a financial background. Like, I'm not a guru. I'm not pretending to be some sort of fake internet guru. There's enough of those people out there. I'm just a dude, and I think it's fun to talk about this stuff, and I do find the opportunity to be very genuinely interested, and so I am taking action on this. And this is the only cryptocurrency where I've been involved since day one. And I've always understood, if you're involved from day one in a project that ends up getting widely adopted, if you're there from day one, like, it's insane. Imagine that you held Bitcoin from day one. Imagine if you held ETH from day one. Imagine if you held XRP from day one, the first day that it was traded. Because it got as low as what, like 0.002 cents? Even with XRP being the price artificially suppressed, going from 0.002 cents to where we're at now at 38 cents, holy hell, that could be easily life-changing. So I don't know if that's going to happen here. But if it's going to happen here... And so, look, the reason that I'm involved is because I got that initial airdrop. That's the reason I'm aware of this. And the reason I don't want to be involved in most brand new, small cap projects is because I think most of them are fly by night. A lot of them are scams. I am just not interested in putting my real money into something like that. Now, with Flare, admittedly, this could all go to zero. So there is serious risk. I'm not pretending like there isn't for me. Maybe I lose everything. But, this is something that even Ripple supports. This is something that is unprecedented in terms of early adoption, even just in terms of distribution, because this airdrop is the most supported airdrop in history. Over 100% over 100 exchanges supporting it. And I say that the only exception to that, I'm talking about airdrops that didn't result from a fork like Bitcoin and then, Bitcoin Cash. If you throw out those on-chain specifics, okay, fine. Maybe those are bigger. But in terms of here's a new coin and it's getting airdropped, this is completely unprecedented. From a technological perspective, it works. I know that the people building this are reputable. They've been vetted heavily by all sorts of people, and fine if that ends up not being the case, maybe again, hey, I got tricked then. But I see no reason to think that's the case. I do think it's risky because there's only been 2 months worth of history. I don't know to what degree this is going to be adopted and offer utility long term, but I think that it could. That makes sense. I'm still learning about the ecosystem, by the way. There's all sorts of stuff that I still need to learn. I'm going to be getting into that in the coming weeks and months. But, you have a coin like XRP. It's been tried and tested. It's been out for a decade. It's been, people trying to hack it for a decade and find weak spots. And those people haven't been able to find them. So I have a high level of confidence that XRP is rock solid. And maybe Flare is, but I don't have as high a level of confidence, not because anything was done wrong, but because it's not time tested. You need more. I need more time to pass in order to feel more comfortable on that front. Now, that said, I have a high risk tolerance when it comes to something like this. And it's I don't know if I'll ever be in any project day one from anything ever again. But in a rare instance like this, where I understand who is creating it, I understand it technologically works. I understand that it's got tremendous support right out the gate. yes, I'm paying attention, and it's not just for XRP holders anymore. Initially, that's how it was going to be. If you had exposure to XRP during the snapshot date, December 2020, good on you. You got it. And then anybody else that found out about it afterwards, too bad, so sad. Until all the people voting on policy changes surrounding the Flare ecosystem decided to vote, because it's a decentralized system, that we're going to change the way the airdrop works. It's no longer the case that if you held XRP, all that airdrop goes to you over a span of a few years. No. It's now you got that initial distribution, which was 15% of what you were initially promised. Only 15%. That's what we all got in January if we had XRP during the snapshot. And then the rest of it, if you want it, you have to delegate the flare that was given, and then you'll receive rewards every month for 36 months, which the first, that's called a flare drop. The first one happened literally yesterday. But it's changed. Now, if you jumped into crypto today, you can participate in those flare drops. There's 35 more, and anyone can jump in. That's a major change. I don't think most people know that. And I also don't think most people understand the dynamics of the ecosystem, because you can put in almost nothing. And that's why it's so lopsided right now, impossible. Nobody's paying attention. But you can put in what, relatively speaking, would be a smaller amount of money, and then you could just have tremendous rewards. And so there's an XRP community member named British Miss who publicly shared what she did. And she's got a lot more Flare tokens than most people, but still, it's not like an outrageous amount of money. I mean, it's not nothing, but it's not an outrageous amount of money to get to the point where you could have what she has. And so check this out. This is just insane to me. But she tweeted out the following. Received the monthly flare drop and received approximately 48,000 flare for having 230,000 flare tokens delegated, which is valued at approximately $6,700. Now, I'll just, as a friendly reminder here, note that flare is currently worth 2.9 cents. 2.9. Imagine if you could have bought XRP that cheap. So 2.9 cents. She's got 230,000 tokens, delegated all of them. And what did she get yesterday for the first flare drop as a result of delegating them? She got 48,000 more tokens. She had 238,000, and then yesterday she was given 48,000 more tokens. So I'm not a math wizard, but that sounds a lot like 278,000 tokens now. So those 48,000 tokens, that's equivalent at the current price to roughly $1,450. Now, in the Midwest where I live, which is, there's cheaper housing here admittedly, but that's a mortgage. And even if that's not enough for a mortgage where you live or for your specific home, that's a few car payments. That's a few car payments right there. And it doesn't take much. So think about this too. So this isn't something like Celsius where you have to hand over the keys to your crypto effectively. That's not the case. This is all done on chain. You have your own seed phrase. You're in possession of it the whole time. You're not handing it over. And this is at 2.9 cents. So imagine that the price of Flare doubled. So again, we'll just use round numbers. So let's just say it's about $1,500 worth of Flare she got for free yesterday. $1,500 for free. Well, if the price goes from roughly 3 cents, about where it is now, to roughly 6 cents, then that doubles. So instead of that Flare being worth $1,500, it's now worth $3,000. And that would be for just 1 month of accumulating. And again, so $6,700 of Flare tokens just to get started. This is insane. But nobody's paying attention to this. This is real stuff. Again, you're not handing over the keys to your crypto. And it's subject to the market dynamics. And I'm still learning about the Flare ecosystem. So I don't pretend to know everything, just to be fully transparent here. But now, what if Flare just goes to 12 cents? Think about that. That roughly $1,500 that you got from those 48,000 Flare from this is just 1 month, mind you. If Flare goes to 12 cents ever, that $1,500 is worth $6,000. That's for 1 month. Do you see how that can rapidly get insane very quickly? So next month, if she delegates that 48,000 Flare on top of the 238,000 Flare, so now she's going to earn not based on 230,000 Flare. She's going to earn based on 278,000 Flare, which means she'd get even more. She'd get more than 48,000 Flare. And then that next bigger amount, say it's 55,000. Then you can throw that on top of the 278,000 Flare she has. and now you're somewhere in the neighborhood of just, let's call it roughly, 330,000 flare, and then you're going to earn an even bigger amount for that the next month, and then you can take that, and then you can delegate that. You see how it snowballs? And so this is why, like, I just, we've all wished that we could have been into Bitcoin or ETH or XRP from day one, right? Because those people are the ones that got the biggest returns in terms of the multiplier effect. And certainly that would be true even just in terms of market price, but in terms of delegating and receiving these flare drops, my gosh, and literally anybody can do it. So again, I'm not telling you to do this or not do this. I'm telling you that I'm doing this, and it's risky. I think it's highly risky, and this could all go to zero, which is why I'm not advising anyone do this, but I have that type of tolerance. And if it goes to zero, it goes to zero. That's just it. And then I lose everything. But I'm also, even though I'm going to put in what to me is like, it's going to be a chunk of change. It's going to be a lot-ish. It's going to be something where even if I lose all of it, yeah, I'd be bummed out, but it's not going to wreck my life. I'm only investing what I'm willing to lose just in case. But yes, I'm going to make some larger purchases on this. And so you're talking about in terms of what you're going to receive. So I received my flare drop yesterday too, and it does vary. And I'm still learning about the mechanics of why it varies, because you can delegate your flare to different entities, and I don't know the specifics about why it varies for people. But it looks like British Miss, based on what she was holding, the 230,000 tokens, it looks like she got an additional roughly 20% of what she had delegated. So that's a big chunk. For me, it was only 13%. So it can vary. I'm still learning about why and the mechanics of all of that. I'm not pretending to be some sort of wizard and know everything on all of this. But what I'm going to be doing is putting more money in while I'm researching. And unless along the way in my research I find something that's catastrophically ridiculous, I'll just keep stacking. And if I find something that's horrendous, I'll share that too. But I haven't seen anything of the sort to this point. But yeah, it's risky because, that's why also you wouldn't want to do this if it's money that you need potentially in the short term here. Because what if the price goes down to a penny or half a penny or lower? It's not like that can't happen. But I also understand that crypto moves in tandem. So given that crypto moves in tandem, Flare's part of crypto. What's going to happen when you have, Bitcoin bursting to new highs? Rising tide lifts all boats. That's effectively how it has historically always worked for crypto. So I don't know why Flare wouldn't be a part of that. So I would anticipate over the long haul much higher prices, even if in the short term we see much lower prices. But there's no guarantees of any of this, and it's a 2-month-old coin. So again, just do your own research on stuff like this. I'm not telling you to do it or not do it, but this is something that I find to be exciting, and I have decided for myself. And look, and I did make a purchase yesterday. I more than doubled my flare, but I've decided, I don't know exactly how much yet, but I've been thinking about it a lot yesterday after I made that video. I've been thinking about it throughout today quite a bit, and I'm going to make a couple larger purchases over the span of 2, maybe 3 days coming up here. And we'll just see what happens. But I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna delegate all of it. I'm gonna let it snowball. And can you imagine? Because it's basically like compound interest. Effectively, it works the same way in terms of once you earn more, then you put it back in and delegate it, and then you earn even more the next time. Imagine doing that for the next 35 months, and then it's done. It's pretty wild stuff here. But I can only imagine what that would look like after another 35 months. Of doing that. So I'm here for it. I'm going to give it a whirl, but again, the reason I'm taking time to talk about this is because I think a lot of XRP holders, although aware of, I think pretty much all of us are aware of the existence of Flare. I think a lot of us, especially that came in, after the snapshot, maybe, or if you missed it, you may not realize actually anyone can participate now. That actually is the case. So, now I wanted to mention this too. So my journey in acquiring additional Flare yesterday was, let's just say, more time intensive than it had to be. So I went to my Bitstamp account, which I registered probably half a decade ago. I've never used it. I just registered. I just like to have accounts, but I hadn't gone through all of the verification, or at least it wasn't up to date. So I went through the time to do that, and then I was like, okay, ready to purchase my Flare. And then I found out that it's apparently, as far as I could tell anyway, not available on Bitstamp in the United States. As far as it wasn't there. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess I can't use that. So then I went to Bitrue, and then I hopped on Bitrue. Now, Bitrue, I actually didn't have an account for Bitrue, so I did have to set that one up. And then after setting it up, I was like, okay, where do I go for all the KYC stuff? And get registered, you have to show your ID, all that jazz. And come to find out that it's a Singapore-based exchange, and I knew they were based outside the United States, but they don't do KYC in the United States. So for other parts of the world, not going to impact you. But if you're in the United States, yeah, and maybe you already knew that. But as a result of that, although you can get Flare on the exchange, you have to purchase a different cryptocurrency or send a cryptocurrency you already have to BitTrue, and then you can swap that cryptocurrency out for Flare. You can purchase it that way. I was like, I don't want to deal with this. I want to buy brand spanking new cryptocurrency with my dollars from my personal checking account. So I couldn't do it there. So I was like, okay, well, let's try Kraken. So it's already wasted an exorbitant amount of time at this point. So I'm just trying to save anybody trouble in case you're using any of these exchange for any purpose. So I get in Kraken, and I did have a Kraken account also, probably set that up, half a decade ago, literally. That's another exchange I just happen to have not used, but I always like to have, exchange accounts set up. But I had to go through all the verifications. So I went through that, got it set up. And they thankfully do KYC, of course. And I knew they did. But anyway, so I was able to link up my personal checking account and then purchase Flare that way. They have a hold for 72 hours for the first transaction. So although I did purchase it yesterday, I haven't delegated yet because they do for your first purchase have that 72-hour hold. Assuming everything goes well, I'm going to transfer, and there's no hitches. If I have a good experience with Kraken, I'll be able to do it in 2 days. I'm going to move that to my Bifrost wallet, which is where I'm delegating all of my Flare tokens. And if that goes well and Kraken doesn't piss me off, then I'm going to just over a span of 2 or 3 days, just plop down a bunch of cash. So I've been thinking about dollar cost averaging in, and I may still continue to do that, but I think I just want to make sure I've got something right now because I don't know if the market's going to move way to the upside. And if it does go way to the downside, I'll just get excited. I won't be sad. I won't beat myself up because price went down. I'll just buy a bunch more even. So, but I want to make sure I'm happy with Kraken, and then if I do, I'm going to plop down a bunch more cash, and then I'll move it right on over to Bifrost, delegate it, and I'm just going to sit on this and let it keep going. I'm just going to let this bitch ride. That's the way that I'm looking at this because it doesn't take much. Just imagine you can do if you're looking at a screen and you hear what I said, even just looking at this one example from British Miss. I mean, it won't take much to get to the point where you're up by tens of thousands of dollars a month. It doesn't take that much. It's just, and again, nobody's paying attention. Nobody's paying attention to this stuff. So anyway, I'm diving in. I'm not going to keep talking about this literally every day. I know I made a video on this yesterday, but I wanted to expand upon it, share with you a real world example from somebody. I'm all about this. And then there's also this tweet from Credible Crypto chart analyst, 338,000 followers. Highlight him on the channel regularly, and he's all about this as well. And so he tweeted out yesterday evening, he wrote, claimed my Flare. The total amount was about 20% of the original drop that we got in January. For those who have wrapped and delegated their Flare, we will continue to receive these drops once a month for the next 3 years. If you haven't wrapped/delegated yet, get on it. And this is a similar message. British Miss also wrote, no matter how skeptical you are, now that's not bad, get delegating. So 20% is about what Credible Crypto got. That's about what British Miss got. I only got 13%. So I'm going to have to look more into the ecosystem and get a better understanding of how it works in terms of the variances, perhaps from delegators. It's also true that I delegated on March 10th, so I was a little bit late to the party, but I did get in before that March 17th deadline. I don't know. I need to research. I don't know if that was a factor in me only getting 13% or if it's purely because of the delegators. Again, I'm still learning here. I'm going to keep doing that as I'm continuing to purchase. But either way, my gosh. Again, and just looking at the fact that, again, like I said earlier in the video, I'm not going to jump into brand new projects probably ever again, but this one's different. It was put right in front of me. It's widely adopted. The people have been vetted, including by people at Ripple, which is obviously a very reputable company. And it passes the smell test for me personally. So again, none of this is a guarantee, which is why I keep saying over and over and over again, I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but I want to be as clear as humanly possible. I'm not telling you to go and do this. I just think it's a fun and interesting topic, and I'm telling you that I'm going to do it. But it is risky. I think it's highly risky, and there's a chance that there could be a hole discovered in the software, and then all this goes to zero. What if there is a rug pull? That's not impossible. It's a brand new project. Not that I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not trying to disparage the names everybody does. I'm just saying the what if things that even if they seem unlikely, what if they do happen? They could happen. So do your own research, make your own adult decisions here. But I'm just staring at this, and I just like, how could I personally, just for me, not do this, given my particular situation. Because even if I put in what I think is a lot of money, relatively speaking, even if it goes away, okay, fine, I'll be disappointed, but it will not even almost wreck my life. But yeah, this thing can snowball quickly. All right, so anyway, I'm not going to be making a bunch of videos about this every single day, but as I make purchases, I'll be happy to mention stuff here and there and just mention it from time to time. But you guys let me know what you think. I'm sure a bunch of you out there listening actually know a lot more about the ecosystem than me. Like I said, I'm still learning about it. But let me know what you think. I'll be curious. I think it's awesome that as an XRP community, we all learn from one another. And it's interesting that we're put in this position because of XRP specifically, because that's where this all started. And now it's opened up to literally everyone. And like I said, I don't think most people realize that change has occurred. And anybody can just now get these flare drops over the next 35 months. Not just XRP holders, anybody. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.